And just call me and Kathy, Malik and Kathy. Yeah, you don't have to mention Robinson or whatever, or Ishmael.
Is that?
Yes.
This is your new favorite.
I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on. Answer it already. Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive.
Stay up on what's happening here at Power. We've got new shows, new guests, and new events that help us connect with the community. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Power 108.9. You can also go to power1089.com to get all of the updated news and happenings here at Power. Thanks for listening. This is Vanguard on Power 108.9, broadcasting live from the Battery in SunTrust Park. Thank you for tuning in to our program this morning. I'm Kwame, and I'm here with Kathy and Malik. Please please like, share, and comment on our page, Facebook, Instagram, elsewhere.
YouTube, yeah.
And most of all, share with your friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sharon is Karen.
Oh, yeah. Sharing is always here.
Yeah.
And it's free.
All day.
Press a button.
Today's program is about family history and genealogy. And I want to start out something, with my famous Did You Know?
Okay, all right. Let's run it, brother.
Most people think that next month, August, will be the starting of the African American community with Jamestown 1619.
Okay.
But in reality, blacks were here 93 years earlier in South Carolina in a Spanish colony.
Okay, all right. What was the name of that colony?
I'll
figure
it out.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
But that was 93 years before Jamestown.
Wow.
So I just wanted to throw that out.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. You want to?
Well, I was just going to say that around the Americas,
Yes.
Thing is, black figures were dug up in, say, Central America and South America. So people of African descent have been going all over the globe.
Yes.
Because most people should know by now that really humanity began in Africa. And so the thing is, there's going to be evidence of us all over the world. You go to the Philippines, they have an indigenous group called the Aita, which the Filipino people call the Negritos, that lives in the hills. They were there long before what you would call a Filipino today.
Yeah.
And they, because of the climate and the atmosphere there, it was much like Africa, so they retained their African features. So we have evidence of our are venturing out into the world,
Yes.
all over the world. So yes.
Some of my friends, history friends, actually call North America Northwest Africa.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All right.
So,
We ready to go to break? What's that?
go to-
Okay, we're gonna go to break right now. We got a special guest. We got Cutting Jeff.
All
He
right.
he about to get in the building. So we're back with the Vanguard here on Power 108.9.
All right.
Cutting Jeff.
Ask them if they can hear you, okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, let me know if you can hear me as I got my
And
live
that's Miss
feed.
Davis.
Give us a thumbs up.
Is that my cousin Susie? Come on, cousin. Let me know if you can hear me.
No, that's Osiris.
Oh, Kamal Osiris.
Yes, Osiris. Ask, make sure they can hear you,
Brother
okay?
Kamal Osiris. Can you hear me, brother? Give me a like or a comment on the page, the live page. Kamal Osiris, curator of the From Old Guard to Vanguard photo exhibit. Check him out on Facebook. Has a Facebook page for the exhibit. Everyone around the country, you need to see this exhibit. It's historic. And he'll be here in the month of October, matter of fact. Yeah.
All right.
We got y'all on the calendar for a minute then, huh?
Hey, man.
Vanguard ain't going nowhere.
We ain't playing, man. We ain't playing with these people.
Y'all know, too bad for these that Sunday 11 o'clock slide is locked down, y'all.
Yeah.
I always say they ain't ready.
Yeah, they say loud and clear. They can hear you loud and clear,
All
so
right,
that's good.
cool.
Good. Yeah, Jeff's gonna get ready to get in the building. We could probably have him sit.
I'm gonna bring y'all on, and then I'm gonna go downstairs and
Okay. And Kwame, you go ahead and do your segment in terms of what's going on with your company. You know,
Yes.
Yeah. And then from there, you could bounce it to Miss Kathy.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm Kenneth Kwame Welsh, founder of Atlanta Segment Productions. We have ASP TV, and we have something new. We actually have started our Atlanta Segment comic arm,
Oh.
and we've hired our first cover artist who has rendered some incredible concept work for us. So
Fantastic.
we're
Congratulations,
moving along.
man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to get started with some of our DNA results. Before we actually start that, though, there's a quote we would like to actually let you know about that actually will do the introductions into our DNA testing. A people without the knowledge of their past history, their origin, and their culture is like a tree without roots. And this was actually written by Marcus Garvey. What it is in order to know who you are, you should know where you came from. So the DNA test results that I'm going to talk about is actually my own.
All right.
So the first thing, we actually did our test, and this was back, my DNA test results are from 2007 from the Ancestry DNA. And the results are in, and I know a lot of my people out there wanted to know, who am I?
All right.
So-
All right, Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yes, I'm from Louisiana, native from there. And pretty much my whole origin, it shows on my mother's side, which is my maternal side, is stored and stayed in Louisiana through the centuries of just our current, within the last 2 generations, have moved out of Louisiana. But while in Louisiana, we, of course, are a melting pot, and we're mixed with all type of people. So the biggest one for me was 21%. I'm Ireland and Scotland. Now, interesting story about that was my doctor actually saw that around my cheekbones. They were red. I would actually, during wintertime, break out. And she was telling me a little bit about my history. So me and my husband, once we got our results in, it had been a minute, went back, took a look at them, went back to my doctor's office, last doctor visit. Do you know the doctor? I ended up telling my husband, say, if you don't tell her, I will. And so come to find out, when I told her, do you know part of, she said, your actual health results are determined by what your makeup is. So she was so excited that she was correct that she actually went into the notes within my records and actually put that information in, because she said anytime you have any health issues, that's part of it. So sometimes it's not necessarily if you think, well, I really don't care where I'm from, but part of it is your health issues can come from where you are. So, of course, now I know why these red cheeks are so red during wintertime.
That's true.
My second one is France. I'm 20% French. Also, the biggest I was waiting for, y'all, some Africa. Where is it? Where is it? So I'm 16% Cameroon, Congo, Southern Bantu people. So me and my husband, some of our results, we want to go visit. So one, of course, just happened to be, we've already visited a part of Africa. Now we want to go back to Africa to actually visit some of the locations we're from. But this year, one of our trips, because we are going on our 25th anniversary, we do want to go to France, Paris. So this is one that's number 2 on my list.
And think about Cameroon. The people that you're connected with are the Bamileke.
Correct.
Who originally came from Nigeria. They originally were Yoruba. And then through Bantu migration, they moved down to Cameroon. And then the Nigerians say, oh, they're the people from over there. So that's what Bamileke means.
Yeah.
And now I know why I love to travel all over. Because, hey, I never can stay still. That's part of what my makeup is. The other part, I'm Benin and Togo, which is 15%. Yeah. Also, I'm 15% from England, Wales, Northwestern Europe, Malay.
Mali.
Mali.
Oh, Mali, right.
I'm 5% from Mali. All right. I'm also from one of the places in Africa that my husband actually had toured, which is Ivory Coast and Ghana. I'm 3%. And most people actually talk about when they're from Louisiana, hey, I'm actually, guess what, part of an Indian tribe, this tribe, that tribe. We always want to say we're Indian. Well, come to find out, Native American, I'm actually 1% from there.
And don't we, all black flamers, we got Cousin Jeff in the building, Jeff Patton. Welcome to the Vanguard, my brother. Yeah. Now, in terms of Native American, thing is, most black families always say, oh, my great-great-grandmother was Cherokee or she was...
Or Blackfeet.
Or Blackfeet. We know we Blackfeet. But but thing is, we always say that, we have some kind of Native American or what have you. And we may, but it's just the majority of us who get these DNA tests shows no Native American ancestry.
Well, we have 1%, and they said that percentage. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what my 1% mean. You said, what was it about it?
What do you mean in terms of what?
You said...
the 1% actually is a lot of people.
There
because
you go.
Remember, through DNA research and science, you're at the bottom point of a funnel. Mm-hmm. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of people that are part of your history.
Correct.
That most of them, or really the majority of them, you'll never know. Because we go back, I know I'm going to go in my test, and of course we talked about it. My paternal ancestor, which Jeff was connected to, goes back to the Horn of Africa. I took National Geographic's test.
Okay.
So the thing is, we're talking 70,000 years ago.
Well, I have another one because I know he'll keep on going.
Oh, yeah.
The next 1% we'll talk about is I'm also Bisque. And I know you're going to comment on that part, too.
Let me tell you about the Bisques. They are people that are in Spain.
And France.
But they just set up in people's lands and just stay there. And that sounds just like some Catholic
dude. That's me all day.
She just Bogart and gangster the situation.
Yeah, I'm always like that. Just a mover. Hey, I move around just like my people did.
There you go.
And look, we stick to what we want to do all day long.
That's true.
All right. The other part, I'm 1% Middle East. I'm also 1% from Turkey and Caucasus. And also 1%, which is one of my favorites, too, African South Central hunter and gatherers.
Oh, okay.
That's my whole story about my DNA. So now we want to do some of that travel to find out and see the locations.
Well, the last one you mentioned in terms of South Central hunters gatherers, that would be the San people, example, that are in South Africa. In terms of the world, they have the oldest genetic DNA in the world, and they stayed pretty much close to when human beings first started popping up in terms of being exposed in Africa. And they're very ancient people.
Okay.
And they pretty much stayed to themselves. They were there to retain a lot of their genetic codes and things of that sort. But you also have a migration that is very singular.
Yes, basically, my whole migration during the transition from Africa was Louisiana.
Right.
Pretty much most of us stayed there. Like I said, it was only about 2 generations back that we actually started moving out. And even with our movement out of Louisiana, I noticed the 2 locations we hit was neither the West Coast, which was in California.
Right.
And then the other part was right next door to Louisiana, which was Texas. those were pretty much the only two. Now the current generation's moving out across states, but it was interesting that we only went to 2 locations pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to see if I can get Jeff, just to ask Jeff about this. Oh, next segment. We're going to do it in the next segment. I'm trying to get Jeff on the mic, baby. So this is the Vanguard on Power 108.9. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to bring Jeff in to just talk about, what he thinks of, families trying to find their history. Is it important? A little bit of our history, especially talking about Uncle Doc, who was on my father's side. So we look forward to talking about that when we return. We'll be right back. What do you think it's a good idea in terms of people to look up their history, particularly African Americans? Because it is. It was 2006.
Yeah, it was 2007. I did mine, and then we did a most recent one, Ancestry DNA, and then we did a most recent one. And the interesting part, the most recent one confirms this test as well. It works. Because the second and the first are the same, and definitely for my health issues, like right here during winter time, it'll crack up my cheekbones. And the first location was it was Irish, and they're the only ones that have that issue with their cheekbones. That during wintertime you'll get red, and there's nothing I can do, they'll crack. And my doctor was so excited to write all that down. So it's almost like you even tracking up your history dictated your health issues.
Oh, that's all right, brother. All right.
This is it. Ta-da! Poof.
Greg said you need to make it or you break it. And so this is just my mom's side, which is my dad's side to do, which is my brother.
Okay.
Did you know?
And you took 2 tests.
Yep, I did too.
Yeah, I did 3.
Did you know the actor Blair Underwood? He's also from Cameroon,
Oh,
and he actually in the TV show Who Do You Think You Are? The TV producers actually hooked him up with his 10th cousin. And so Blair Underwood and his dad flew to Cameroon and met the family, and the whole village came out to celebrate with them. They partied for about 2 full days.
Oh, man.
For real. And it was all filmed. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. All right. Really not the show for it? Yeah, not really. Because we're going to do a show on him specifically, come out here. Oh, yeah, definitely will. Yeah, I was going to say the question in terms of Bunchy Carter, we're going to definitely have a soul show on Bunchy and his significance. He's one of the unsung heroes of the Black Liberation Movement, and particularly the Black Panther Party. So we're definitely going to have a show on Bunchy, and we'll have it real soon. And we'll keep you in tune on that. Then what it is, I'm going to bring Jeff in on the conversation.
Yes, we're back with the Vanguard on Power 108.9 here in the Battery, just next door to the Brave Stadium. Thank you for tuning in to our show today. And we have...
It's my cousin Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, just call him Cousin Jeff.
But
anyway, brother, what do you think about people that want to know more about their history? Do you think it's something that's valuable, and how did it relate to our family?
Well, I think myself, I haven't done it myself. So,
now, you're talking about just the DNA test.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I think it's very valuable because we want to know where we come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of other people know where they come from, know their history is documented, but us as African Americans, we know very little.
Right. In that paper trail, because of the institution of slavery, or what I would call the African Holocaust, there was a lacking of a paper trail.
True.
Because we were considered pretty much just property at one time. Mm-hmm. But yet we're the first people to walk the planet.
Changed yet, but yeah.
Okay. Cousin Jeff keeps it real.
Okay.
And could you describe great Uncle Doc? and we used to come to the family reunions in Delhi.
This is PG. Wait, we go PG.
Go
Yes,
PJ. Yeah. Go,
I mean,
please go PJ. We know Uncle Doc. All right.
I don't know what else I can say. Pretty much like a lot of our great uncles, you know. They like younger women.
No. In terms of well, no. I'm saying in terms of he used to bring
DNA
information on genetics. Yeah. Man, we going real deep. We all up in this.
I don't remember that.
Well, I remember him talking about he would have, I guess, different kind of papers to show a family tree, and then he even linked us to this, I guess, British family that probably owned us, obviously, named the Cavendish.
No, they didn't own us. It was just what little I know about them. It was they came from Britain. It was 7 brothers.
Right. Okay.
And I can't tell you which brother started Ireland. It was just
right.
But yeah, he just married a black woman, and this is how we all got here.
Well, the majority of the relationships was not a loving thing in terms of. But the thing is, within our family, we saw pictures of our what is it, great grandfather who was from Britain, and then on my Anderson side, which is my mother's side, maternal, I think there was a Frenchman that also there was a picture that I think my Aunt Barbara showed me one time, and he showed a picture of him with his family at the time, which were our relatives. So yeah, I was just saying because some people just assume that the relationship in terms of I guess when we look at the relationship between European men, African women, most of the time it was a very negative rape type situation.
Barn house?
Yeah, pretty much. Or as in Louisiana, we got the quarters.
Okay.
So you used to go down to the quarters.
No, not at this one, I don't think, because, they was married.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They raised a family together.
That is amazing, yeah.
And definitely taking pictures, because back then pictures were not cheap.
Right.
And the thing is, if you take a picture of your family, normally that's pride. That's what that means.
Right. Right. And also, what tests are you interested in taking?
Give me the 3 again.
Well, I know for myself. The cheap one. That's Jeff. It's well, the more affordable one would be probably Ancestry DNA. What was more important to me was AfricanAncestry.com. I got my African ancestry test because that was the one I was more interested in.
I mean, is there any difference in what the knowledge you attained from looking at it?
Well, they began to link up, to be honest with you, because for my test, when I got, say, the African ancestry, they linked me to the Congo region, specific generally, but specifically it was Angola. And it was the Mbundu of Angola. And thing is, when I took the Ancestry DNA, it linked me with the Congo region, and it named Angola as one of the principal places that my ancestors came from on our paternal side, which will include yours. But your test and my test may be totally different on a lot of things. So I would recommend, right now, I guess, if you want to go the affordable route, African Ancestry, I should say not African Ancestry, but Ancestry DNA. In terms of my interest, initially at least, is definitely the African ancestry. And then I did one test called National Geographic. So I was part of this Geno project.
Yes.
That Dr. Spencer Wells, who's a geneticist, he did a genetic project. And I wasn't featured on the show because there's a show called The Human Family Tree. You can look it up on YouTube. And he has a book called The Journey of Man.
Yes.
And he says, he pretty much shows where Africans went all over the world and populated the world. That 1% difference that makes human beings different genetically made all the variations due to climatic changes and things of that sort. So I would definitely recommend Ancestry DNA.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's other tests like
23andMe.
I think they deal with health in terms of what your genetic health signature says. So there's a lot of good tests. I think you would agree.
Yes, you have to probably at least do 2 of them, Jeff. So 2 different ones, and so they'll cross-reference, and you'll see similarities in between. Say, if you want to find out something specific, some of them go in depth into, say, for instance, it says a Native American, they'll actually pinpoint which set of tribes that you are probably from, say, South Carolina tribes. So if you want to get more in depth, you might want to take 23andMe or one of the other ones.
Yeah.
Now, how much percentage of Native American you can be to get that money to get?
Oh, he want the
boy.
casino money. I don't know. You got to actually
1%
talk to the tribe.
No, I think it's
How much is it?
6% or something like that.
Oh,
You got the test done.
Yes.
Oh, now he's going to get that test.
And in reality, according to the scientists, 95% of African Americans actually have Native American ancestry.
Oh.
And in my TV show,
Okay, right.
Blacks of the Old West, we'll prove a little bit about that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've actually done a lecture series on the subject. So
So would they have that 6% Jeff is looking for or not?
Well, when he gets his test back, his results, yeah.
Listen to me. Some of us have way more than 6%. Yes.
But we've always
Yeah.
historically said, well, like I said, my great aunt, she had that hair, those cheekbones.
Exactly.
It could have just been a combination of African and European.
Correct.
You know,
So statistically speaking, most tribes require 1/16 Native heritage in order to be Native American,
Yes.
and then some can get up to as much as 25%.
Whoa.
Yes.
Well, my little one ain't going to cut it.
and going back to Kathy, your African ancestry part, you want to read like I guess the one you came from in terms of the.
You talked about it, the
Oh, we did?
Pamela, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
that's
you're
all
good
you
on
had on that? Okay.
But you actually do, with the African ancestry, you actually do end up getting a certificate.
Okay, right.
So they give you a packet, and it's beautiful, the packet that it comes in to represent.
Right.
So they actually go all the way out, and it looks very, very professional.
Right.
Also, we actually end up getting your region that you come from, actually from the map in itself. So you get that one as well. And what I love now with technology, you also end up having it where you can download the app. So the same story you have, you actually can get in the app. And on the app, you actually, one of the locations, you open it up, and it'll actually tell you about the mapping. And this is what you'll get, and it'll be color-coded. So it's beautiful. And constantly, they're updating based on your family, actually doing their DNA. You actually get updates on where you are. So sometimes your percentages can change. With that, of course, since I was from Louisiana, and back then it was crop-related.
Right.
So it was more about the family growth. And at that time, even with my dad's family, they were 13 in their family. So when talking to my auntie, she actually took the test. Some of my cousins took the test. The interesting part was all of us would come up neither as relatives that's very, very close. And the first person I called after I got my results was actually my auntie. She was listed as number 1 as the closest relative. And then I found out I had about 7 or 8 first cousins, and they came out, and I could tell just based on their emails that they were the first cousins. So we all linked up, and now it's all over. Interesting part my husband didn't state was, right now, just within the last week, I had 91 new matches that came up with me.
Wow.
Also, close matches, I have 1,600 already on there.
Wow.
Now, distant cousins, which are up to 4th and 5th cousins, my family, as I told my auntie, we sure knew how to multiply. I have a total of almost 16,000 close relatives that's actually linked up right now with DNA testing. And that's just on my mother's side.
Wow.
Incredible.
I think what I'm gonna have to do, my wife and I, we had a bet because I've been talking about doing the DNA test for a minute,
Right.
and I bet her that I was more African than she was. But looking at your results, I think I'm off that bet. Like, I think I'm off that bet.
Wow. Well, I think it's incredible, and thing is, it's amazing because my first link or my first connection on the Ancestry DNA was my cousin Reba.
Okay.
And she was listed as my first cousin, and again, I didn't know she took the test. She didn't know I took the test, but all of a sudden they were able to connect us.
Bam.
So the legitimacy of it is definitely on
Yes.
point.
So what happens is once you take it, it links you with the other people that have already taken the test.
Yes, on the app,
Oh,
it does that. It's
okay.
beautiful. It'll link it up as you go, and as new members come on, you can go check it once a week. It'll tell you how many new matches based on people within your lineage of your maternal side for this one. If you do your father's side, just imagine how that can grow.
Yeah.
Right.
So if it was a Tinder connect previously, you probably don't want to link up with your cousin.
Well,
right?
we are the human family tree anyway,
That's
so
right.
we all relatives. So
Hey.
family just got to get it in, I guess.
So what? As they say on that one, you be going, oops. But I was going to say the other part to that too, when you bring that up, Michael, part of it. We actually had a family reunion on my dad's side, and a couple of those guys were guys we were glad we said, he looked good, and that was about it.
That's
Because coming to find out, that was relative.
Wow. Well, we're going to go to a break right now. We're having a good time here. Cousin Jeff in the building. We got the mayor in the building. And, of course, Kathy and Kwame. We'll see you in a minute.
All right.
Yeah, that's some interesting stuff there.
So now we're going to be interested in yours.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to go into it, yeah. Yeah, because I think, again, the African ancestry part was the part I was more interested in. But, the African ancestry DNA was very interesting. I mean, it had stuff I didn't think I was Native American. I didn't have like a preference or nothing. I got Sweden. I got Norway. I'm like, wow. Oh, the top one is Cameroon, Congo, which is where Angola is. It's part of the Congo. And Southern Bantu.
Yeah, Wakanda.
Oh, Wakanda?
Yeah.
Nah, Wakanda didn't make it, man. But, maybe the update will give you Wakanda.
That's
no, right. Well, the paper had cut off.
Yeah.
You want to be more of that.
Whatever.
Hey, wait, let's bring that calculator.
That's right.
You can't be more than 100.
You know you're wrong, right? You know you're wrong.
That's right. Oh, but you know what? You want to hear something interesting? I recently, in the last few years, found out that I also have Louisiana family members. Yes, and I've actually visited. One of my Louisiana genealogist friend. I went there and she took me on a tour and she helped me find the family farm and the house. That they're living in, that they lived in, and the house is now on the LSU campus.
Okay, cool.
In Baton Rouge. It's like one of the, yes.
So you better check your family.
Northwestern State.
Yes.
Okay, right.
And the house is, the street where the house is named after my family. Can you imagine? Yeah, that's how we found it. We were in the car with a map and the Google Maps and the atlas, and she said we were determined to find this stuff out. So it was a very emotional day.
That's amazing.
When did that happen?
This happened in 2013.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, 2013. March 2013. I was there for RNA function, and I took a day off to do my genealogy.
Okay.
I got the best person, Lydia. She just did it for me.
You're gonna bring me in and then open up and then bring me in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna just go over my 3 tests.
There you go.
I got all these tests I got to talk about.
Tester.
But again, it was interesting, and I remember when I first was waiting on it. Each day was like, man, when is it coming?
He was going in the mailbox every day.
Man, I just wanted to know.
Like waiting for a government check.
I ain't gonna. I'm gonna say no comment on that.
Wait,
That's right.
Kwame, we breaking
But I did know about the government cheese.
Oh, welcome back. This is the Vanguard on Power 108.9, and welcome back. Our program today is about family history and genealogy, and I'd like to reintroduce Brother Malik.
All right. Well, and definitely we want to again shout out Brother Cousin Jeff in the building. Yeah. I took 3 ancestry tests. The first one was African ancestry because that was the one I was most interested in. And then I took National Geographic's, which is deep history. We're talking about 70,000 years ago. And then Ancestry DNA. So my African ancestry part, and people can go to AfricanAncestry.com to get some more information. On my mother's side, which is southern Louisiana part, we were Guinea, the Fulani of Guinea, and as well as a connection to the Timni of Sierra Leone. And the sequence said I was 100%. So that means on my maternal side, that's why, all the women in my family, they were linked to that. Okay. And the interesting part about Sierra Leone is that they have a connection to the Gullah, because the same language they speak in Sierra Leone, it's a broken part of that language that the Gullah people talk about. Mm-hmm. And they were really cultivators of rice. Yes. Many of the enslaved Africans from Sierra Leone, they had a special brand, unfortunately, that was branded to their bodies on their shoulders, and they were always taken to the rice farms that are on the coast South Carolina, and Georgia.
Yeah.
So that was
the Sea Island.
The
Because
Sea Island.
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You know, so that was just real interesting. And me and Katz had been to the Gullah Festival. Do you remember?
Correct,
Yeah,
yes.
we had a great time, and it just shows the connection. Mm-hmm. And then also on my father's side, which definitely would include Jeff, is again Angola, and we were part of the Mbundu. And the interesting part too is that I was connected to the Ebo of Nigeria. But what it was is that through Bantu migration, the Ebo left Nigeria, kind of like
Yes.
The
the
Bamileke.
Yoruba, went down to Cameroon. And so the Ebo left Nigeria and then went down and settled in Angola. And then some of my other genetic DNA relatives kept going south, who became cousins of the Zulu.
Uh-oh.
But thing is, in terms of my most recent ancestry, in terms of who was taken on the boat
Right.
during the slavery or the African Holocaust, was an Mbundu brother. And thing is, they were taken from Angola and brought to Louisiana. And there's a place in Louisiana called Angola Prison. That used to be a plantation. They would only have Angolan men and boys housed there before they were sold and distributed throughout Louisiana and Texas and I think Arkansas.
Yeah.
So that was the real interesting part. You about to say?
So question was why, and I know you knew the history of Angola, so why did they actually end up doing that in Louisiana? What was the reason why so many Angolians end up in that prison?
Well, number one, because the voyage was shorter a lot of times. You know, many of our people ended up in Brazil because that was a certain
A direct route.
And then some obviously went through the islands, and the reason, you know, it was a major port. New Orleans, the Carolinas, you know, I would say down to probably Brunswick. Matter of fact, there's the Ebo Landing that's in Brunswick, Georgia.
Yes.
And that's the infamous part where the Ebo were on this ship and they were getting off the ship or being forced to get off the ship. One of the chieftains who was enslaved, he actually had them walk into the water and drown themselves instead of live a life in slavery.
They said a lot did that.
Yeah, and I actually went down to that place and you know, just to honor them. So that's part of our heritage on my paternal side, which I honestly believe Jeff is part of that because that's that maternal line. Now, in terms of my ancestry DNA, it says that 35% of my ancestry, which is the highest, comes from Cameroon, Congo, and Southern Bantu. And Congo, part of that would be Angola. That was listed as well.
Okay.
The next would be Benin and Togo, which is 26%. And then Uncle Doc, he kept telling us about Britain. And, you know, how we just was hooking up or whatever the case may be. 15% of my DNA goes back to England, Wales, and Northwest Europe. So again, and I always remember with the Cavendish, for whatever reason, you said it may not have that connection or whatever, or you say because you don't remember Uncle Doc talking about that, huh?
No, I must have been somewhere else drinking or something.
Oh, okay. Oh, he was in the back, probably fishing there at Dale High.
But I did see the pictures, though. I
Yeah.
do know that
Yeah.
he was married. One of the Cavendish
yeah.
men was married to, I don't know, great grandmother.
Wow, and
Yeah.
that in and of itself is amazing, especially for the time.
And that's a noble family.
That
the
is, yeah, very
Cavendish,
much, yeah. And matter of fact, we'll be in London in October.
Yes.
Not to say we're looking up.
It's going to be
Cavendish
trying to knock on that door.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also Mali, 10% from Mali. And what's interesting about Mali is that there was a king named Mansa Musa.
Yes.
You know, he was considered at one point the richest man in the world. And he led a caravan of, I believe, of 60,000
It was thousands.
across the country to go to Hajj to Mecca. He flooded the gold market in Cairo.
Yes.
To this day, that's why gold is a certain standard because the effects of Mansa Musa.
Exactly.
And they said as he went down the trail, you could see the gold kept coming out.
Oh yes. I mean, so the thing is that was pretty interesting and also a source of pride for me. You know.
Where is Molly?
Oh, Mali's north. It's actually it's West Africa, but it's up a little bit in terms of being by Guinea,
Yes.
by
Inside
Guinea-Bissau.
the bulge.
Yeah.
It's like almost dead center in the bulge.
Right. And of course, Cameroon. We're central to South Africa almost, pretty much. We're not Cameroon, but the Angola.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, and then also I was 5% Norway. So I remember one time I think I had a blonde hair on my back, so maybe that comes from that. I don't know.
Don't feel alone. I have Norwegian
Oh, is that right?
ancestry too.
Okay. Hey,
Yes,
hey,
yes.
it's all good, man. You know, I guess I'll be following the Vikings now. Ivory Coast, Ghana. And the interesting part is that I've been to Ghana. You know, I had out of all the countries that I visited in Africa, that I really felt the most at home was Ghana. And that's the place where you have the dungeons that housed our people in Elmina and Cape Coast. So that was just really, it was a very enlightening trip. Matter of fact, W.E.B. Du Bois left America. He renounced his citizenship, and he became a citizen of Ghana along with his wife, Shirley Graham Du Bois, and he ended up passing away on the day of the March on Washington. You know, so that was pretty significant.
And then also, can you talk a little bit about
Was that in August?
Yeah, it was in August, in the month of August, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the tour you did when you were in Ghana and y'all went to the Ivory Coast? Yeah, well, we went to Cape Coast dungeons, which were where they housed our people before the transatlantic slave trade. And thing is, it was quite eerie initially, and thing is, just to stand in those dungeons where hundreds of our people were just packed in there. For a 3-month stay, oftentimes, and it was just a real emotional, internal emotional thing for me, and again, I just thought about my ancestors, and to see that I have 4%, which 4%, that's still a lot of people. Correct. If you have hundreds of thousands of people in your line, even 1 or 2% is pretty significant.
Can I ask a question? And this may sound crazy, but when you get your results back, are you kind of disappointed?
No, not for me. I wasn't disappointed. I think part of it was just needing the know.
Okay.
And so my husband, as you can see, he loves history and he loves checking where things are. Mine was just wanting to know because you had no clue.
Right.
So anything was better than nothing.
Because what I'm thinking is, like, one of the reasons that maybe disappointed was the wrong way to put it, but you think that as African as you are growing up, that your bloodline would be more African than what the results say. And that's what I say.
Gotcha.
Are you kind of
Well, that part I definitely was, because mine is more the opposite than it is.
Oh, well, we can tell.
And look, and that was just on my mama's side, so I'm scared when I get to my daddy's side.
Well, it was the geneticist Spencer Wells who said that we're all African underneath the skin. Now, this is a blonde hair, blue eye. He looked like he from Norway. He looked like a Viking. But the thing is, he did such extensive research in Africa. And really, to be honest with you, he just did what many African-American historians did back in the day. You're talking about J.A. Rogers. He had a book back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that talked about how we were pretty much the first people and how the world was influenced by our culture all over the world. And also people like, Yusuf bin Yakadin, Ivan van Sertima, Francis Cress Welder. So all these powerful people had said the same thing. Even Elijah Muhammad. I mean, he said at one point the earth seas got so low that you can walk
across. The continent.
Yes.
So that's how people were able to pretty much populated the earth once they left Africa. Because I think we spent 2/3 of our history in Africa.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go ahead and finish up here.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, like, about Caucasian brothers and sisters that you know personally yourself taking any one of these tests and maybe like 4% African, 5%?
I don't know personally, but I do look at YouTube sometime, and they give their reveals. And I remember one lady, I think she was from England, and she said, "I'm 4% African." How did that happen? I mean, look at me, And thing is, it was so entertaining, but it's also so educational because you can't judge a book with just one look.
Yep.
And thing is, again, as I say, we all come from Africa. The man that's in my history, which I go in on with the National Geographic part, but again, we talk about 70,000 years ago when there was no one on the earth except these Africans in Africa. And thing is, when we go maternally, 150,000 years ago, there was a maternal Eve, which was an African woman that they found. And thing is, now they weren't the only ones around at that time, but the only ones that whose DNA
shows that link
lasted this time where we can track them. Yeah, so finishing up on mine, again, Ivory Coast, Ghana, as I said, 4%. France, 3%. So we have a connection there. And then Native American, 1%, which, it was cool, Then Sweden, I was like, wow, okay, all right. Another Nordic. I'm thinking, wow, man, no wonder I got a little blonde hair on my elbow. So that's the ancestry DNA part. Now, the National Geographic, as I'll say, the National Geographic was the one that's talking about your deep history. We're talking about going back thousands of years. And as I talked about my most ancient, because I think I was part of the 3 ancient tribes that evolved. And they were the progenitor of the African who left Africa, because many stayed, but many left, to a certain degree, and then they began to populate the world. Ocean tides began to lower, all the way to the corners of the earth. We're talking about modern humans 45,000 years ago, Africans going to Australia. The Aborigine. If you break down the word Aborigine, it means ab means from, originally beginning. And so the thing is, we were the people from the beginning. You go to India, you talk about the untouchables.
Yes.
They were linked to Africa.
And those are Kushites.
Yeah.
They're directly related to the Ethiopian people.
Right. And I also talked about the Aita people, which in the Philippines they called Negritos.
Yes.
They live in the hills, and they maintain their African look. But the thing is, if you say a stereotypical Filipino,
yes,
they look different.
Yes.
Right.
But so that just, those kind of tests were just really interesting. And I didn't have any expectations, to be honest with you. I just say, okay, whatever comes in is fine. I'll accept it. I'll embrace it. And again, I'd do it all over again. So when we come back,
you weren't thinking about the casinos?
Nah, I didn't have the casinos in mind, but it is what it is.
So you had a question before you go to break. They want to answer this question when you come back. Okay. Did I hear Kwame say that he was at the Lil Wayne concert last night? Can y'all talk about that when you come back, please?
We need to address that. So we'll be right back with the Vanguard and Kwame messing with Lil Wayne.
All right.
We'll see you in a minute. And then I'm going to talk about this brother right here. That was Cheddar Man. That's the oldest British citizen there. Brother, he just look like he got an S curl or a little curl going on. From LA, right. Yeah. And that's that article right here. It just show you, man. It's like, hey, again, we're the mothers and fathers of civilization. By God, from my perspective.
Yes.
Jeff got jokes today, I tell you.
The whole family goes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, there's working in cahoots there, Now, Kwame, are you ever going to get a test done? Or
I'm going to.
Are you going to?
I'm going to start out with 23andMe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that has the health thing.
Yes, most of my other genealogists that I work with, and a lot of my cousins on both sides of my family have taken 23andMe, so I'm going to go along with them, and so we can kind of match up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
That'd be good.
Yeah. And what I'm going to do is finish up with Dr. Wells and how he took this test in Queens, New York. Mm-hmm. Because Queens, New York, supposedly, in the United States, has the most ethnic diversity anywhere in the country.
Exactly.
So it's really a gateway.
Yeah. Something like 250 different ethnic groups.
Yeah, that's Queens.
Yeah.
International.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to go to the bodega and get a little something to eat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Welcome back to the Vanguard. You want to start off?
Yeah, just want to finish up with Dr. Spencer Wells. When he did this documentary called The Human Family Tree, he had it on the, I think it was either PBS or, National Geographic Network, because he's with them. I got a chance to watch it after I took the test.
Okay.
And it showed in Queens, New York, they had such ethnic diversity there. Because I was thinking, okay, you're going probably to California or going to
Louisiana.
Yeah, it could be Louisiana. And but the thing is, he was in Queens, New York, and because they had probably the most diverse genetic makeup anywhere in the country. And so he just tested these people that came to, I think it was the 30th Street Fair or some kind of little festival going on. And he tested all these people, and then he gave them the results. And you talking about people look, especially our white brothers, they were looking in shock. Even our Indian brothers, they were like, "What?" It's like I don't, someone were like very pleasantly surprised. Someone were a little shocked. But again, it just goes back to what we've been taught and what we haven't been taught.
And our stories.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is passed down from generation to generation. We don't really know. We just assume because everybody told you, your grandfather, your grandmother.
Right.
That tradition was just basically us hearing stories.
Right. And then Jeff brought up a part about the paper trail for us because, a lot of our European friends, white brothers and sisters, they can trace it way back to the Shield of Windsor or something like that, right? But with us, the paper trail ends, or I should say, we pick up the paper trail once the emancipation we supposedly got free and what have you, and that's when we're able to kind of track it. But before then,
but you remember we talked about that before.
Right.
It was listen to our names.
Right.
When we talked about it, we said go to Africa. Do you hear Kathy?
No.
Did you hear James?
But just like you to go to China and you run into a Jamal Whitfield. It's like you look at him like, what's going on here? But thing is, what's most unique about us, and again, we're part of humanity, and everything like that. It just is, we're very unique because we're totally stripped of our culture, our history, our names.
That started when you got off the slave ship at that time.
Right.
Because when you came off the ship, your name got completely changed from what you were, where you came from, so you have no clue at that point in time.
Right.
But I want to make two interesting points. Number one, about 3 years ago, they actually did a study in the whitest country in Europe, which is Scotland.
Oh, okay.
And when they did the DNA, on these humongous amount of Scottish people, they found out that Africa was number one in their DNA.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? The whitest country. Right? But then, not to make light of us, but in reality, we have something on our side. We have oral history.
Right.
We've been able to pass on so much, even though we might be lacking in the paper, we have a lot of it that's been passed on from generation to generation to generation. That is sound. Well, we can find that we could pull out in this discrepancies or
well, even the word canoe.
Yes.
Gumbo.
Yes.
If you don't say that's African, banjo. If you don't recognize that as African, then you are losing your mind.
Tote bag.
Gumbo.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So for me, I think, and Jeff, you have any comment on that or?
I'm getting hungry. We're just talking about
okay, yeah. We're going to head on over, get a little something to eat out in a minute. But for me, the DNA research was like building a bridge over troubled waters for me. These tests allowed me, specifically AfricanAncestry.com, allowed me to grasp the hands of my ancestors over this bridge. And something that I never thought I would do or have the ability to do, or they would be the science to do. And let's not get it twisted. Over that bridge, or under that bridge, rather, is a calcium highway.
Yeah.
Because many times when they took our people from Africa, the various ports, and when they had what was called the tight pack, they would actually throw Africans in the water that you saw in the movie Amistad.
Yeah, Amistad.
Yeah, and so thing is, we have went through a whole sojourn, but we still standing, as Maya Angelou said. You know what I'm saying? So thing is, it was a real educational journey for me. It's very humbling. It made me feel more a part of humanity, to be honest with you. You would think that, I'd be more, black power this and angry and what have you. It was actually a calming effect because I was able to reclaim some of the humanity that I knew I had already, but it just really reconfirmed through some of these tests.
Reinforced.
Yeah, reinforced, right. So that's what it did for me, actually.
All right, that calming effect.
Yeah.
Knowing a little bit about who you are. And for me, it was actually the health I didn't even know.
Right.
And basically it proved it based on the doctor. And she was 100% excited.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, let me write this down. Biggest part outside of that, though, is just And not only that, one of the main things I want to say with that too is share it with others.
Right.
Because remember, if it's in your line, it's in your family line all the way across. So sometimes having those family reunions, everybody should bring theirs. Right. Whether it's by paper, whether it's by DNA testing, but us knowing self is important because we lost that coming over. And the biggest thing is finding it, sometimes find you.
Right. And I think also the effect on how we look at ourselves is very important. Because if you study, American history, the books that they had on us, the only contribution they act like we did was Crispus Attucks was the first to get killed in the Revolutionary War. We picked cotton, and we did a mean ham bone.
And we do some inventions, and they try to give you some of that. But a lot of that also was lost because at the time, if you were property, you didn't own anything, including that invention.
Yeah, and I remember Malcolm X once said, "Hey, cotton picking don't move me." So the thing is, that's why he aggressively went to people like John Hope Franklin, which was his historian, to get more history. When he was in prison as Detroit Red, he spent, I think it was 7-8 years in prison, and he read every book he could get his hand on. And because in society, it was just like him being in the jungle. He was just trying to survive. But once, unfortunately, he went to prison, he had time, fortunately, to kind of think, got time to kind of study. And that's when he kind of turned his life around in terms of finding out about his people. I remember one of the books he read was Findings in Genetics by Gregor Mendel, which is an Austrian monk. And he determined that humanity had to begin in Africa because of our DNA. This is long before Spencer Wells and all the other people are around today. So I just think that's real fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tell us another one. I know you know the story behind From Here to Timbuktu when we clown about that.
Yeah, we always joked about, man, I'm going to go from here to Timbuktu or whatever. There was actually a place called Timbuktu.
And it was knowledge-based.
It was knowledge-based. Yeah.
It was the biggest location that everyone from all over the world, they were talking about back then. It was actually queens and kings would send their children there to get educated. Yeah. It was actually the first known university was in Timbuktu.
Timbuktu, that's right.
But we clown about it like it's a place of no land.
Right.
Guess what? It was in the news recently, and they're actually rebinding some of these ancient volumes.
Oh, wow. And the manuscripts and what have, wow, that's amazing.
And it's in Mali.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Mali, they always had a certain thing in terms of records keeping, if you will. And a lot of our places around Africa were pretty much destroyed through colonization. Because you have to remember, there were no borders prior to 1885.
Yes.
When they had the Berlin Conference, and they established all these imaginary borders, say this country here, that country there.
They carved up Africa.
Like a cake. And so the thing is, I guess one European gangster say, I got this place, we got this place, or what have you. And
banksters.
Banksters, right. And so the thing is, again, it's a point of just, again, reclaiming, do some study, learn about history, learn about, your authentic history, not by what, people have told you about history, but your authentic history. And I know you've gotten more into history.
Yeah, because the biggest thing I said is knowledge is power. And the thing about it is once you have it, no one can take it away.
That's true.
And basically the other parts of that is we all know that history, sometimes if you let it, what they say, repeats itself. Right. So the biggest thing is making sure that you get the knowledge that you need to make sure you stay on point. Definitely having the means, and one of it is with us now having technology the way it is, you can definitely educate people, and now it's free. Right. So the thing about it is once you know it's sharing it with others is the way it's going to keep it alive. Truth is what I said it should be.
All right, well, we'll be right back with the Vanguard on Power 108.9.
He was like, you're supposed to be out. Yeah.
Oh, we're supposed to have. Well, I'm going to just have a quote today when we come back.
As I say, do your wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about what you got coming on.
That's what
Okay,
I was going to say.
right. Well, I have Kwame do that. Yeah.
No, you can go ahead.
Well, see, I'm going to just go ahead and give my quote, and then I'll let Kwame go ahead and end it. Since he opened it up today.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning.
Well, it's still good morning.
Is it still morning?
There you go. It's still morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome back to the Vanguard.
All right.
Next week or next program, we were going to have a special guest from East Point. That's all I'm saying at this point.
Right.
Okay.
East Point, Georgia, not any other state.
Okay.
So he's saying stay tuned, people.
And in conclusion, considering our topic, I'm going to do a quote by Huey P. Newton in his book Revolutionary Suicide. There is an old African saying, I am we. If you met an African in ancient times and asked him who he was, he would simply reply, I am we. I am we. All of us are one and the same and the multitude. So that's about it, baby. And we out of here. We'll see you next time on August 11th with an East Point resident.
Yeah.
More than an East Point resident. We'll check you later on the Vanguard. Peace and blessings. All right.
They go, so you look at his watch, but don't really look at it.
Right, I see that.